Hello and welcome to the Destination Talent Coachella Valley 2020 Education Workforce Series. All callers for today's call will be in listen-only mode. Should you experience technical difficulties or are disconnected, you may dial back in to join the call. Today's call is being recorded for available playback. At this time, I would like to turn the call over to our moderators, Sheila Thornton with One Future Coachella Valley and Joshua Bonner with the Greater Coachella Valley Chamber of Commerce.
This is Sheila Thornton. I am with One Future Coachella Valley, and I'd like to start today's call just by thanking our sponsor, Agua Caliente Band of Cahuilla Indians, for their generous support for today's call. This was going to be a live event pre-COVID-19, and we turned it into a webinar, and they have been just generous sponsors of the work that we're doing on education and workforce development in the region. I'd also like to say a little bit about One Future Coachella Valley. One Future is an organization that brings together education, business, nonprofit, and other partners to work toward building an educated workforce from within our own local student population. We convene what's called the Regional Plan for College and Career Success. Our three K-12 districts have been on board with this since 2012, the first regional plan, and are now adopting a regional plan 2.0. And the concept behind our work is really to tap into the talent of our own youth and do what we can to prepare them both for work after high school and for college, and to be a part of the future workforce and contribute ideas, talent, and solutions. And now more than ever is the time that we need their talent to be developed. So thank you for being on the call today. And I'd like to also introduce my co-host, Josh Bonner from the Greater Coachella Valley Chamber.
Thank you, Sheila. Okay. The Greater Coachella Valley Chamber, a regional chamber of commerce. We are primarily involved in regional advocacy, economic development, and of course, our future workforce is a primary concern for us too. So we're very excited about today's call and look forward to our panelists. Speaking of, we have a great panel for our discussion today. Sheila, would you like to introduce the guests that we have online?
Sure. So we're fortunate to be joined by three great leaders from our region, all three superintendents. Welcome, Dr. Maria Gandera, who is the superintendent of Coachella Valley Unified School District, Scott Bailey, who's superintendent of Desert Sands Unified School District, and Dr. Sandra Lyon with Palm Springs Unified School District. Thanks so much to each of you for taking the time to join today's call. It's important for our community to see you and to hear from you in terms of leadership and our combined leadership in the region. So thanks for being on it. We're going to start, Maria, with you. Can you just quickly share with us the area that your school district serves and the amount of students and some general information about your district?
I think I'm unmuted now. Is that correct?
Yep.
Great. Thank you very much. I want to first start by saying thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to talk to you about our districts. Coachella Valley Unified School District is a district that serves over 17,000 students. We serve over 1,200 square miles, everywhere from Indio, La Quinta, Coachella, Mecca, Oasis, North Shore, all the way to Salton City, the city of Chirac as well. So we are a very diverse, very varied district. Over 90% of our students are free and reduced. Over 92% of our students are unduplicated. The majority of our students speak a second language, which is very fortunate for us as we are a dual immersion district. So we offer dual immersion in Spanish all the way from kindergarten to 8th grade, and it's building up to the 12th grade in the next couple of years. We have the best students in the Coachella Valley. Sorry, Desert Sands and Palm Springs, but we do. And we are very hopeful that soon we will be able to bring them back home to school, where I know they would rather be, and have them complete their education as they go out into the wider world and represent our district very well. So thank you.
Great. Thanks so much, Maria. We so appreciate it. Scott Bailey, can you do the same for Desert Sands Unified?
Okay, I think I'm unmuted now. Yes, I certainly can. And unfortunately, I was not able to go first. I too claim the best students in the Valley. Thank you, Maria. Desert Sands Unified School District has 5 board members. Our district serves 28 1,000 students, over 752 square miles with 2,700 employees. So the largest public school district in the Coachella Valley for sure. Our district has a 92% cohort graduation rate, and also has some wonderful programs, dual immersion, for example, and multiple career tech ed pathways. An absolutely great district. Just to piggyback off what Maria said, our free and reduced lunch population is just over 70% currently.
Great. Thank you, Scott. Sandy Lyon, can you follow up with Palm Springs Unified School District?
Absolutely. Good morning. And first of all, thank you to One Future and to the Greater Coachella Valley Chamber for pulling this together. And thank you to all the participants. I'm seeing faces of people I haven't seen in weeks, and it's giving my heart joy. So that's a wonderful thing. We really appreciate you all tuning in. And I love my colleagues, Maria and Scott, but we do have the best students in our district. So that goes without saying. Palm Springs is about 22,000 students. We serve over 550 square miles. We have 27 schools, 16 elementary schools. One of those is a dual immersion academy. We have a continuation high school, 4 comprehensive high schools, 5 middle schools, an online academy, and a charter school. We have about 2,400 employees, and about 85% of our student population is low income. About 33% of our students are English language learners, and about 88% of our students overall are considered high need. And we primarily serve 5 communities: Cathedral City, Desert Hot Springs, Palm Springs, Rancho Mirage, and Thousand Palms, as well as other outlying community areas and unincorporated areas. And I'm really grateful to be here and talk to you about what we're doing in public education. So thank you.
Great. Thank you, Sandy. We really appreciate it. So today we're here to hope to get a broad assessment of where our local education system is, specifically K-12, relative to preparing the future workforce, how they're navigating this unprecedented change in our society and our community that's really hitting our community hard, and we know will have a significant impact on our economy. And of course, how they're dealing with the current crisis that we're experiencing, but also how we can move forward together beyond the current crisis and think as a region about and vision together what it is that we could do to be sure that we come out of this with as much health and also economic mobility as possible. And the K-12 school districts are a big part of that work. When we envisioned this originally as before the current issues, we talked a lot about the fact that since 2012, the 3 school districts in this region have, through a unified approach, decidedly begun to prepare students for college and career, and have made significant investments in those college and career pathways, including career academies and pathways that give these students the job skills that they need for success in the workforce, but also the aptitude for post-secondary work. So we've seen increases in college readiness through FAFSA completion, A through G completion, but a significant investment's been made in the career academies throughout the region. We have upwards of 44 career academies of pathways across the districts, and more than 8,000 students that are studying in those. And they're learning everything from culinary skills to engineering, aviation, and healthcare. And this was a very deliberate strategy to position the K-12 school districts as a true feeder of the future workforce and give students career relevant experiences. We're very grateful for the business community that stepped up to support these career academies as well. But we thought we'd start there because today's discussion really is about the future of our economy vis-a-vis the workforce and what K-12 is doing. So if you could, each of you, just speak a little bit about what that career academy and pathway CTE work looks like in each of your districts. So I'll start with you, Sandy.
Okay, thank you. Well, we have academies, as do my colleagues I know, at each of our high schools. And I'm not going to name all of them, but we have health and environmental academies, digital arts, engineering, and robotics, which is our MESA pathway. So we have academies and pathways, public safety, renewable energy. We actually have an academy for careers in education. And I know some of my high school folks are online. I've seen their faces slide by, and I won't mention them all, so please don't be offended. But I think one of the things that we've tried to do in the past with our career tech ed pathways is make sure that we are providing students the opportunity not just to determine exactly what pathway they want to be in as they go out into the workforce, but to develop those workforce skills that are going to translate into four-year university, beyond, or directly into getting themselves into that education mode. I think one of the things that we have always had was that work-based learning component where our students then get out, they get to have internships, they get that experience with leaders in those fields. And so our staff has really done a great job of building those relationships within our valley and really helped us start to think about what our community needs. I think going forward, and I think that may be another question. So I think right now we've built a program that's very rich and very supportive of the needs with healthcare and other fields, the restaurant field and all of the other kind of resort kind of community needs that are in our community. And I think one of the things that we're going to learn from this as we go forward is the adaptability piece. Have we looked at each of those CTE pathways and made sure not only are they good for that sector and for that particular area of workforce development, but have we made those students adaptable enough that they can then translate, as we've seen just in these 6 weeks, how quickly business and industry has had to pivot in so many ways in order to try to be responsive and adaptive. So I do think we've really done a great job in our district and through the work with One Future and with the other districts in terms of the regional plan, and all of the academies and pathways that we have in our district are very, very well aligned with what our needs are. And now I think we're ready for the next iteration.
That's excellent, Sandy. And to think about the impact of coronavirus and the stoppage of the economy basically, and what it's going to look like to reemerge in specific specific workforces. We always talk about experiential learning. This is the ultimate experiential learning for this generation of students to go through a pandemic. Is enormous. And so we keep inviting employers and others to think about what does it look like to mentor students even through this hard time and to show what it means to build resilience in the workforce. So that's excellent. Scott, would you like to share what Desert Sands is doing with career academies and pathways?
Absolutely. I echo comments made by Dr. Lyon. Sheila, I think you illustrated a great point. This is a learning experience for us. We're all learning through this. Haven't been here before. So it definitely is a learning opportunity, and it actually might shape the way we prepare students for their future. I'd like to underscore the fact that in Desert Sands, our vision would hold us to successfully preparing all students for college, career, and life. I think this is a life lesson that was not in the lesson plan book on Friday the 13th as we close school doors. So that in itself is going to create a change in lesson planning as we move forward. And then the fact that college and career readiness, it means just that. All students must be able to be prepared when they exit and walk across the graduation stage in the traditional setting anyway, to be prepared for college and or a career. So we, at a minimum, want them to be able to be successful in either of those environments. Desert Sands, we're very proud of our pathways. We have developed over 20, I think 25 to count right now, 25 specific pathways. Just to give you an example, in collaboration with One Future and working on the Master Plan 2.0 as it is, working with industry partners to determine where these jobs and career fields are trending or leading. I think that's important. So these 25 pathways tend to align with the needs of the workforce requirements. And I just want to, as I close on this topic, indicate that I think we might be overlooking the fact that the students that are in our classrooms today experiencing this global pandemic and this crisis are actually in their minds creating some of the career fields of tomorrow.
That's excellent. Wonderful, Scott. Thanks for bringing that up. Of the 8,000 students in the career academies across all three of your districts, 1,500 of them are in health career academies. And so they're a pre-health workforce. And the more we hear from the health workforce folks across the state, we're hearing that new job descriptions are emerging through this. Things that weren't there before. Everyone's hearing about contact tracers as a new job, and that is going to be the new reality for us. So it's wonderful that you've got adaptability built into these as well. Maria, share with us about Coachella Valley Unified's college and career pathways.
Thank you, Sheila. I think it's important for everybody to know, if they don't know, that the great thing about the Coachella Valley is that through the One Future Coachella Valley, we are all working together as a team. I mean, we all work together to develop new programs that are going to benefit our community, because these are all our children. That's why we all say we all have the best students, because we do. Coachella has 9 pathways, established pathways at the moment, with over 2,500 students. And we have everything from agriculture and aviation to where we're building and we're growing the future pilots of the world that we're going to need, to film and digital art and the health academies that I think we cannot underscore enough the need for medical personnel in our valley for the future. And I think it is important for us to note that no matter how robust our programs are now, I think we're going to have to build them even stronger in certain areas, health being one of them. Our students are correct right now. They are seeing what the potential is for them in the future in different positions. Our agriculture is strong right now. Agriculture in our valley is tremendous economics as well as life-saving. We are fortunate where we live because we have the food supply right close to us, but other people are not so fortunate. So our students are also seeing how they can fall into that pathway to support the Coachella economy, but also the global economy, because that's never going to change. But for me, I think the really important thing as a new superintendent and a proud superintendent of this Coachella Valley Unified School District is the partnership that we have, not only with our neighboring districts, but also with One Future Coachella Valley, which says the whole Coachella Valley is working together to make pathways for our students so they can be successful in life and career. So thank you for that.
Great, that's excellent, Maria. I'll turn it over to you, Josh.
Okay, thank you. Our next topic for discussion: what are the districts doing to navigate change as we experience an unprecedented transition to online learning, and what steps to prepare for fall 2020? If someone would like to take that question first, we'll open up the mics.
Well, I'll jump in. I think what the bigger question is, what aren't we doing right now? This has really been an amazing challenge for all of us. And, again, we've talked about the connectivity that we have here as districts in the Coachella Valley. I'm really fortunate to have a nice group text with Scott and Maria, where sometimes we've texted each other 20, 30 times a day as we're navigating really, truly uncharted territory. And I do think that one of the misconceptions that people may have had was that we were able to just sort of flip a switch and be ready to close on Friday, and on Monday, be up and ready to run a distance learning program. And while we've all been dabbling in distance learning, we have an online academy. Different folks have done different things with it over the years. We've been talking about having one class for our high school seniors be an online class, and here we are now. It's going to be more than that. We really have had to put a lot of pieces in place that were not there. Content development, training, a number of things have had to in real time very quickly take place so that we could set our students up for learning. In the Coachella Valley, and I know my colleagues will speak to this in different ways, we've also had to make sure that our students have the devices, the connectivity, and that if they don't, distance learning looks like something different. And so how are we getting packets that look like phone books out to our families so that they're able to have materials in their homes in order to continue learning? I'm a longtime classroom teacher. Delivering online is not something that was in my training. And so for our veteran teachers, it is, some of them again are those folks who are lamplighters. They're out front, they're leading that charge, and others are learning at a very fast rate what it looks like to have connectivity with students online. So I do think we're doing many, many things that are around reading, learning, training, looking at best practices, looking at research. We're networking like crazy in our valley and up and down the state and across the country with other districts to see how people are mapping it out. And in many ways, we know what we're doing right now is just the first iteration of better and more meaningful deep learning practices that we will be able to engage in the summer and fall.
I think if I can jump in next, one of the things that I've actually been excited about with the distance learning we're doing right now is because of where we are located. Sometimes we feel a little isolated from the rest of the economic opportunities since we're so far east. And I think one of the things we've learned with distance learning is it doesn't matter now where a new mentor or a new company who's going to be working with us is located. Because of the experience we've now had with distance learning, we've now realized we can make connections even through a computer screen. And you can build upon that relationship for other opportunities. So I think in one respect, one horribly good respect coming out of this is that we're going to be able to develop stronger relationships with mentors from the fields that we're interested in that are just not located close to us anymore. So I think that is one great learning opportunity for us right now.
And for Desert Sands, I can say this is a forced transformation, if you will. A lot of us, when we left the office or closed the school day on Friday the 13th, March, I don't think we were quite prepared for what was before us come Monday. The forced transformation obviously is an opportunity to learn. I think we're all learning through this together. This is our sandbox, if you will, that we weren't expecting to be able to play in. So we're getting better every day. But as Dr. Lyon said, it's not something where you turn on and off a switch. In Desert Sands specifically, we reacted, I think, fairly quickly, responded to the situation. We loaded curated curriculum for parent access almost immediately with the internal staff working around the clock for that. I have to give kudos to my Board of Education for their vision. I know I have a few board members on, including my current board president, Linda Porras, right now. We won the California Golden Bell for our initiative to provide Wi-Fi access through our own LTE network last year. So we kind of had an advantage, I'll say, having that in place. That coupled with the student-issued devices across the district gave us a pretty level playing field, even though we still have concerns for some equity and access, which I think remains a global concern, to be quite frank. We coupled that with teacher training, and we worked with our associations to provide guidelines for grading and other interactions with students online. So again, it's an opportunity to learn, even though it was forced upon us. Yeah, so we're going to learn through this and come out a better district for having had the experience.
Probably a few people on the line that are interested in this. Our next question is, how has the class of 2020 been impacted by COVID-19, and how is their transition to graduating seniors being supported?
I guess I'll jump in first. I think we have to be realistic and know that, unfortunately, our class of 2020 has been tremendously impacted by this. All of the fun activities that go along with being a senior in high school, or an 8th grader, or a 5th or 6th grader in elementary school that is getting ready to transition to the next step have been interrupted because of this. We cannot do any social gatherings at this moment in time. The big graduations, the proms that our seniors were looking forward to, those have all been interrupted at this moment in time, from no fault of anyone at all, except this is the reality we live in at this moment in time. So I think all we can do as a school district at this point in time, and as a community, is recognize that and try to celebrate their accomplishments, because let's be honest, they've done tremendous work to get to this point in time, and they deserve to be recognized and celebrated. We're all working on ways right now to develop a virtual graduation, if you want to call it that, for this moment in time, so they can be recognized, they can be celebrated. Is it what we wanted for them? No, it's not. Are we still looking at ways that potentially we may be able to celebrate them in the future? Yes, we are. We unfortunately can't even tell you right now when we will be able to do that. So it's a little bit premature for us to say we have these plans for them, because we don't know yet. I think all any of us can tell you at this point in time, we will celebrate. We will recognize their accomplishments because they've earned that right, and we want to do that for them. Our virtual graduations, while not as pomp and circumstance maybe as we've had in the past, will certainly be a lot more fun. I think that we can say is we're going to try to make them more interactive and more just fun for them because they deserve that.
I couldn't agree more with Maria's comments. I think that the stark reality is students are definitely disappointed at the minimum. You know, we've had parents, students invest a lot of energy and effort for 13 years to get to this finish line we call the end of the K-12 experience, known as graduation. And now that line has been tremendously blurred, and it leaves us all out there with a huge degree of uncertainty. Desert Sands likewise has pledged a virtual graduation, but that virtual graduation is a minimum of celebration. There are lots of other creative activities coming from our actual schools. We're opening a survey this week, a novel approach, obviously capturing student voice. We want to survey our seniors and find out exactly what ideas they may have to better celebrate their accomplishments above and beyond our virtual graduation. So we're keenly interested in seeing the results of that survey. And as Dr. Gandera indicated, that doesn't mean that we won't consider a physical traditional graduation, even if that has to be at a later date. But right now we have so many scenarios we're playing. We usually play out a scenario A and a scenario B, and I think we're all the way to scenario Z now, not knowing what the future holds physically. So we'll play that by ear, but for Desert Sands, we definitely have committed to the virtual graduation. Students will walk away with a keepsake as this calendar year quickly comes to a close, unfortunately, in the virtual setting.
So I think all three of us are in the same boat. And I do want to say, I mean, there are many other, you know, we're focusing right now on this celebration piece of it, but there's so many other things that our seniors are missing here at the end of the year, as well as all of our other students. And the graduation in particular, because it is the culmination of 13 years of hard work and something you have in your mind's eye. I know, you know, our Board of Education is so committed to our students, and one of the things they love more than anything and look forward to is looking every graduate in the eye and shaking their hand and handing them their diploma. It's, you know, they talk about what an honor that is in their role to celebrate these students that they've helped shepherd through this process and create a vision for in our school district. The principals are devastated. I'm devastated. So I think, and I've been doing this a long time, and this is one of the most difficult parts of my career that I know I will look back on as one of the most painful. But like everyone else, we're doing a virtual graduation because we do know there's also the launching and the closure that's important in the proximity to the date of that event. And so we need time to plan for that. And so we're working on that right now, and then keeping the door open for other kinds of celebrations and recognitions physically in the future. And, you know, it's a challenging position because families and everyone looks forward to these events to celebrate all the hard work and, you know, sweat and tears that parents and staff put into getting those students, and the students themselves put into getting themselves to that milestone so that they can enter into this next new phase of adulthood. And so we're going to come up with stuff that's creative, we hope, as well. We've got a lot of people working on it, and we also are going to be soliciting input around what those other recognitions and celebrations could look like. The challenge is we don't have a date, as Scott said. We don't know what that will look like or when, and so trying to select a time frame and say this is when we're going to be able to do it is just something we don't have the information on now to do. So we're working with everyone to make this as celebratory as possible, and want everybody in our community and our families to know how difficult it is.
Thank you. Sheila, do you want to move to our next topic?
Hello, there I am. Thanks so much, Maria and Scott and Sandy. I wanted to just say a couple of things, just reflecting on your comments. One is that through the regional plan for, the lights just went out in the office because you need movement. Sorry, folks, about that. Through the regional plan for college and career success, we just met in January to affirm Regional Plan 2.0, and the focus was on, among a number of things, technology skills. And it is absolutely kind of prescient that was what we were focusing on when we were about to face the greatest challenge to the digital divide that we've ever seen. We already knew that we had disparities among students who didn't have access to Wi-Fi or technology tools they needed to be able to be successful in school. But the 3 school districts and the broader regional plan partnership had focused attention on working together on common goals, on making sure that students have it ubiquitously going forward. And Desert Sands, who has had some really significant advancements in that field, their director of information technology, Kelly Vollmer, actually stepped up to be the co-chair of that task force. And in the midst of everything that folks are doing at the district level, I got an email from Kelly yesterday forwarding something from the state superintendent, Tony Thurman, on this being the opportunity and moment where we all have to work together to close the digital divide. So I just wanted to say that that's the kind of work that and thinking that these districts are doing, that it isn't just about a competitive edge. It really is about if a student can get access to Wi-Fi in one area of the Coachella Valley, every student across the Coachella Valley needs to have access. So these 3 superintendents and school districts have stepped into that space. So we're going to prioritize that going forward. The second thing I wanted to say was on the class of 2020. We have seniors graduating, and you know the prom and everything else is such a loss. One thing at One Future we're trying to do is be sure that we don't lose the class of 2020 in terms of college enrollment. College enrollment is posing significant, there's a lot of obstacles to that for students as well. Their families are experiencing economic downturn. They have to pivot to how you apply to college and get the right information and choose a college that's relevant. Many students want to come back home and go to a university closer to home. So we're doing everything we can on the regional plan partnership to be sure students have immediate information about taking their AP tests, submitting their deposits or getting help with that, getting scholarships and financial aid, and getting questions answered. And that's been a powerful partnership as well. We invite our whole community into that space. Let's be sure that we're celebrating these seniors, but also and celebrate them also by helping them get to that next stage, not derail their college journey that's going to get them into jobs that will make them economically mobile.
Yes.
Future visioning. Sandy, you and I had a conversation about this, facing the new realities of this pandemic, but also keeping an eye to where they're going to be in the future and what it means for us to see our students as significant contributors for solutions for the future, making sure that they continue their learning, that they are connected to employers, even if it means that it has to be virtual, and that they are able to get advanced in a way that can get them to being able to provide solutions and be part of our economy and our workforce of the future. So we just wanted to get your thoughts on that. What do you vision in terms of how this community can support those students to stay on track and support districts as we emerge from the economic impact and the infrastructure impact that we've just experienced?
Well, I echo, one of the things that Scott said, which was our students are thinking right now about adaptive things that need to happen in the future because of their own experiences. And so I think that's really going to be true. I think, and Maria pointed out, we're learning that we can do things beyond somebody coming to your office and having that conversation. And so that's how we're trying to open up our field of thinking about what it means. Connecting it to really the real world application though of what we're going to provide for our students. I do think everything that we do now is through this lens that we see a world that we didn't see before. We really weren't thinking about, we were thinking about specific skills, we were thinking about certain preparations, but we weren't thinking perhaps about the ability for workers and students to be as nimble as they need to be now. And so I do think that is something that we will imbue our work going forward to make sure, we've been a very paper, pencil driven kind of place for a long time. And I think the idea that is we've talked about in One Future and with my colleagues is our students need those technological skills. And again, here it is, proof in the pudding, right? That they need that in order to be successful in a variety of settings. And so, as you talked about in terms of tracing these new categories of jobs that are out there that we really haven't thought about and probably aren't on counselors' minds, we're needing to open up and think about what are the kinds of opportunities and skills that students will need. It's that entrepreneurial kind of idea that we need to really inspire and imbue in all of our students. And so I think that's going to be a big piece for us going forward. And, the medical field, telehealth, in addition to the idea that, you're going to take somebody's blood pressure, what does it look like when you're navigating that with them and they're somewhere else and they're taking their own blood pressure? And so trying to help our folks, our students have the communication skills to be able to do that and engage in that, and the confidence to make those moves in a very timely fashion, I think is one thing that will really be important for us going forward. And I think the other part that Scott mentioned, and we're going to be doing this as well, is surveying our students. And we're going to learn a lot from them at the end of this. What did you like about distance learning? What did you hate? What worked? What didn't work? It's going to be harder to get that information out of our primary kids, but our high school students are going to be able to tell us a lot. And we definitely need to hear their voice and listen to that and learn from it and work with our staffs to be responsive to that.
I think one of the things we've all learned through life's experiences is whenever something happens to change our way of thinking, we come out of it a lot more flexible in our thinking and ability to come up with new things. I think our students, especially our high school students who are being impacted so much by their own changes and circumstances in life, are already thinking of how this will not impact the next generation, so to speak. So I think in the future, we're going to see a lot more ideas, a lot more development that we were not prepared for and not thinking about, because they will come up with better ways of communicating. They will come up with better ways of being flexible in whatever job they may be. We recognize right now what are the traditional positions that we need. The health, we need the health and medical in our valley and in our country and in our world right now. But like Sandy said, there's going to be a tremendous opportunities even within that field. And I think it's important for us as school districts is to continue to talk to our economic partners as to what do they need for not only the short term, which is the next 1 to 5 years, but also the long term. Because I think what this has shown us is we're going to have to think beyond a short term plan in order to get our students ready for that. So I think we're going to have a lot more communication. I think we're going to be able to be a lot more flexible in the next few years. And I cannot wait to see what our students from today are going to come up with for us to do in the future.
And for Desert Sands, or at least my personal perspective, first of all, Sheila, I want to say thanks, giving a shout out to my assistant superintendent, Dr. Claudia May Balmer. She's definitely leading the charge there to deliver on the board's vision. So thank you for that. I'm reminded, based on the comments from my colleagues, my superintendent colleagues, of the 4 C's. Many persons are familiar with the concept of the 4 C's: collaboration, critical thinking, communication, creativity, and innovation. To me, those are transferable skills, whereas students can pretty much work in any environment, whether that be from afar or near. But those are transferable skills that I think our industry partners are always desiring. And for me, this experience has underscored the importance of the 4 C's. I might have to add a 5th one, maybe 4 C's and an A, the A being agility. We've definitely learned that we have to pivot fast in some cases. Lastly, and this is just my personal perspective, I like to visualize or illustrate situations so I can explain them better. We always hear this concept of thinking creatively outside the box, or think outside the box, will you? A lot of people are saying that right now, think outside the box. I tend to say we think creatively inside the box, especially in public ed, because the box is defined very much by policy, rules, regulations, laws. This pandemic, however, has given us a chance to push up against those walls and potentially distort them. As Maria was indicating, we may see new jobs come out of this. We may see areas that we need to work on. We've identified opportunities for improvement, but also some strengths, these new careers, we can fill in the void there. So the way we've distorted the walls of the box as we're thinking creatively inside might actually be permanent, or may stay, the box may have changed shape for a while. We don't know until the next thing hits us, and hoping that doesn't happen, by the way. But I think, again, we're all learning through this, and we may have changed some of the boundaries that pre-existed prior to this event.
If I can just add one thing, our teachers are amazingly capable, and our principals, our school leaders, and they are already on this track. They're already thinking about, okay, what's working, what's not working, what do we need to do differently? And so I really think we have so many talented people out there that are all having their own experiences and pulling that together, and then seeing how that impacts what we do going forward. It's going to be really powerful.
This is all really excellent, and it's thinking inside the box for our employers as well. This discussion brings to mind, we've had the great experience of watching as all the college and career pathways are being built across the years, but also bringing employers to get to the table who have supported students I know Bob Canby, Avid Physical Therapy, began working on this pipeline with the healthcare students about 12 years ago. And that was because there was a shortage of physical therapists in the Valley. There was 5 jobs for every 1 PT, PhD grad. And he now he can hire an MA in an hour, and he has a couple of doctoral students in the pipeline. It's a long-term approach, but the concept is that we really do need to work together to build our future workforce. And in the context of this blip in the economy, we know jobs are going to take a significant hit. We don't want to lose that interaction with employers. I think now more than ever, we really want this community to come together in a unified way to build the vision for the future, to interact maybe inside the box, Scott, but in a different way where we support that, continue to support that pipeline. And this is like an open call to our business partners to think with us. We know we're all suffering through it together, but if we can think through that together to figure out new and improved ways of getting those students in the pipeline so that we can all retire one day with a great quality workforce. Any comments on that?
I'd just say, necessity is the mother of invention, right? And so I think it's kind of what we're all saying. This is a huge opportunity, and our business partners have been great. And so never let a good crisis go to waste. It'll be a great opportunity after this to, as we're going through this, really to pull together and say, okay, what are the lessons learned? What do we need to switch up? How do we keep this? Because you're right, we want our students to stay plugged in as they have been, and we want to continue to provide that workforce pipeline and that college and career readiness task force that's ready to go no matter what the task is.
I agree.
And I
Go ahead.
Sorry, but I just wanted to add from the business community perspective, we talk a lot about radical change that's been forced upon us. In some ways, we look at this as a radical fast forward button. The reality for all 350 plus that are on this call right now, we're looking at likely what it looks like. And so, it's forced us to go through this radical quick transition, but there's a lot of elements that the business community can use and adapt and work with the education component of it to start preparing us. And as bad as it is, like many have said, use this as an opportunity.
Thank you for that, Josh. If I could just add, again, it's an awesome opportunity, if you want to look at it that way, to strike while the iron is hot, so to speak. I appreciate very much our business partners throughout the Valley. I know it pains me just as much as it pains me for the teachers and students to go through this situation. It pains me to see our business partners suffer because they've been such a support over the years. And I just want our business community to know that we appreciate them very much. We're all in this together. So any way we can give back and collaborate, just know you can count on us. I just wanted to bring everyone's attention to the fact that Dr. Lyon kind of reminded me of it. Our teaching staff, all our staff for that matter, have been extremely collaborative and have responded greatly. They're they're learning through this. They're trying to figure it out, and it's difficult. I'll say that. Having tried to work from home at least one day recently, that's a difficult task. So even our teachers that are providing distance learning have their own children in their household they're trying to manage, and those children actually might be participating in online school also, by the way. So this is a difficult time for everyone involved. And I want to bring your attention to that because we're coming upon Teacher Appreciation Week soon. So when you ask what can the community do, I think we can give some applause to our teaching staff and all our employees for that matter that are serving students.
I think the only thing for me to add to all of that is I think this crisis has certainly shown us that we are not one grain of sand in one beach. We are all in the beach together, standing together, hand in hand, metaphorically speaking at this moment in time. But everything that we do, everything that happens to one of us happens to all of us. And if we don't stand together now, we will be sorry for it in the future. Yeah. So I do want to say thank you to all of our Ed Services staff, our district staff, our business community, and our Coachella Valley community for standing with us and for standing together for everybody involved. It's painful, but we will get through this. It just takes a little bit more time.
Thanks so much. I think we have some questions that came in through the registration process.
Correct, yes, thank you, Sheila. So we had a couple questions that came through from the general public. I'll ask the first one. Are there lessons that can be learned from the current remote learning that is taking place that could reduce our need for brick and mortar infrastructure in the future?
Well, I'll jump out there. My opinion would be that, yes, just as I was talking about the walls flexing, that we will learn from this process, from this experience. And yes, there may be better ways of doing things in the future, having had this experience. But I will say, I think there's always a place for brick and mortar schools to some degree, form or fashion, as an anchor to the community.
Yeah, I would concur. I mean, of course, we're going to learn things and there will be opportunities that may not require brick and mortar in the same ways. But I do think, you know, one of the things that we know is reading is a complex task. And the students that I worry about greatly in terms of being able to access remotely are our primary students in particular. Under the best of circumstances with a trained teacher, some students still very much struggle to learn to read. So we all know proximity is a key teacher's tool that we've all used, those of us who've taught for a long time, because there's brain research just about the idea that my physical closeness to you can elevate your attention. And so without that, I do think there are some different kinds of learning that happen. And what we want to make sure of, and Sheila alluded to it earlier, was this, you know, the digital divide is real. And the access to education divide is real as well. And so what we want to make sure is that you know, there is still that opportunity for, as Scott said, our schools to be the hub of the community, which is really such an important function for them. And, you know, my kids grew up with 2 educator parents, and I was so grateful that they had a brick and mortar school to go to and that they had other adults to not just see in this kind of a space, but to actually be with and learn from and grow from. So I think we're going to learn it. It will no doubt change how we do business going forward. But I think there is, as Scott said, there's still a place for brick and mortar in our world.
Sandy, you made me think of a story that in one of our alignment teams is our behavioral health alignment team. And I get echo because we work with a lot of your teachers and counselors and administrators and assistant superintendent, Kelly Volmer. I got her title wrong earlier, Scott. But we heard from one teacher who was working with a student virtually on a science lesson in a health academy. And her mom and she, they live in a home where multiple families live. Her mom and she share a bedroom. So as the daughter is on the computer listening to this science lesson and engaging with her teacher, her mom is alongside of her, and her mom was very engaged and enjoying it and proud of her daughter for what she was learning. And that just made me think, we are a whole world, and it is about the bricks and mortar, but it's also about the parents at home being engaged in this process. And we're hoping that this is an opportunity, and that we can foster that we can support that going forward as well, that we really need to do this from a whole community perspective to support student success going forward.
And, I just want to also say we have homeless students as well, for whom the brick and mortar is really critical and vital. And not all of our students do have learning environments at home that are conducive to quiet. And that's a positive illustration of it, but we also have students who are worried about taking an AP exam at home because concentrating even for the abbreviated test now is going to be very challenging.
And I think part of it is also important to know that, yes, we're going to learn from this, and I think we're going to be given a lot of different opportunities to reach students in different ways. But the brick and mortar, I think, also allows us to teach our students that social, emotional, that cooperative building, the collaboration skills that they need for the future. So I think we're going to see a slight modification and improvement in how we can teach, so to speak, but I think there's still going to be a high need for the brick and mortar schools for the future.
Okay, thank you very much. Another question that has come from our audience: what training are we giving teachers to help them with this radical transition to distance learning that has suddenly been experienced?
I'll jump out there. Desert Sands, again, in responding to school closures, immediately started working on training modules. We have some highly qualified staff internally that built modules that include topics such as security, online security, how to behave and provide a secure environment for online interactions, for example. We also work to identify standards in the curriculum that may not have been covered fully before school closures took a turn for us. We also had additional training on the actual use of technology, and many other training modules were developed for that.
And we've done exactly the same thing. Talented folks in-house building those, and some of it's synchronous delivery, some of it's asynchronous, and then same thing as Scott said, we wanted there to be a baseline. Teachers can certainly go above and enrich and enhance, but to make sure we have a guaranteed viable curriculum across the district, our teachers developed content grade level specific for our pre-K-12. And so then training to go through those materials and start to get familiar with those has also been taking place. And so again, this is a great tool for that. So our teachers are in a lot of Zoom meeting and Zoom trainings, as well as accessing online developed curriculum.
Yeah, I think it's important for everybody to understand students are not the only ones doing online learning at this moment in time. So are our teachers, for a variety of reasons. A lot of them were comfortable in many ways of using technology in the classroom, but this is a completely different way of teaching. So I think all three districts, and probably every district in the state, in the United States at least, has had teachers be students for the first time in quite a while, as we all had to learn how to use Zoom effectively, how to use Google Classroom effectively, how to reach out to students in variety of modalities, not just through the new computer technology, but sometimes using the old technology of phone calls. That helps as well. So we're all in this together, literally and figuratively. We're all learning together.
I think I could sum up the response to that through a conversation I had with a veteran teacher. She said, this transition has created this thought in my mind that I'm a brand new teacher, a first-year teacher. And I think my colleagues might agree with me. We might feel like first-year superintendents right now.
Oh, right. Without a doubt, without a doubt. And I will say too, the social emotional part, our counselors and all of our support staff are also learning, as Maria just said. So that's a part of that PD is, I'm used to just picking up the phone and calling and saying, come in, let's have this conversation. Now I'm going to have that whole conversation over the phone. And it is a different skill set and you're looking for different things. And so I echo what Maria had said.
I think we have time for one more question. the current situation has exposed some issues with internet availability and the resources that are available across our valley, especially in the, how can we overcome this challenge?
Well, I'll jump out there. I think Desert Sands has great success in trying to close that digital divide, the homework divide as they call it. Homework divide simply because when students go home, they're not able to complete their homework in an equitable fashion. This is a global conversation, certainly a national conversation. Desert Sands is actually featured in a report from Congress to the FCC to try and get them to relax some of the current laws around E-rate, which is where we get a lot of funding for these types of projects. So that remains a national conversation. And I think as we've stated through this conversation, this is an opportunity to pounce on that. We need to take advantage of this moment in time when people are actually feeling it, not just reading about it, but we're feeling it. So I would hope that we make some positive movements in that direction. And certainly we applaud the assistance of One Future for developing this task force to try and solve the problem for our over 70,000 students in the Valley so that they have an equal, equitable playing field.
Yeah, and I think it's important to note that I think we're all talking right now with all of our legislatures, as well as the governor's office, and the fact that it is very important at this moment in time that we use this to our advantage to help not only our students, but I think our community as a whole. Coachella Valley Unified School District, unfortunately, has about 40% of our students who don't have an infrastructure for even getting connectivity. So we are having to create different opportunities to help them to be able to access school through online learning. But it is not just the school that we have to worry about. It is our whole community as a whole, because I see a lot more in the future. How do we get communication out to people in a concise and fast manner? And unfortunately, it seems to be that the internet is used for that more and more every day. So if a certain percentage of our population don't have access, then how are they going to get the message that we need to get across immediately to help them, to help all the community? So I think this is the time for us to all band together and to say we need to create and develop this infrastructure for the whole valley.
And yeah, and I know obviously the Coachella Valley has been working on that for a while, and it's been a conversation, but at the state level, when you have the state superintendent of public instruction putting out a call to foundations for donations for us to get the technology that our students need to do the work they have today, that's a crisis. And so we really do have to respond as if it is a crisis. Some of us are more fortunate and we've been able to create one-to-one programs, but in the county, it's fewer than half of the districts in the county of Riverside have that right now. So that's a staggering number when you think about it. And to Maria's point, here we're talking about the idea that we're going to learn a lot from this about preparing that CTE workforce, changing our CTE offerings to support the workforce for more technology-driven jobs. But if they can't get online at home to do the telework, then once again, we don't have a pathway. And so that's going to be a critical marriage of the work we're doing and the work that the economic developers are doing throughout our county and Coachella Valley, and working with our partners at the federal and state level to make sure that, you know, as Scott said, we're all involved in this E-rate conversation at a federal level, and how do we get the attention to the places like the East Valley of Coachella, in particular Coachella Valley, that need that infrastructure put in. But our whole Coachella Valley needs it, and we're learning that right now. You have us, you know, sort of patchwork quilting it together with hotspots, and that has its merit, and that is also expensive, and you know, it's going to be a challenge for us going forward, depending on what our budgets look like, to continue at the level we're doing right now to respond to the crisis. One of my questions is that going to be sustainable for all of us going forward?
And from a business community standpoint, I think most people know that infrastructure and access to high-speed data is something that we have been big on for a very long time. We continue to work on it. Sometimes timing is everything. We actually, myself and Joe Wallace from CVEP, had the New York Times out to us last week on this very subject.
Right.
So you take advantage of these situations and use it as leverage to try to get this very important thing done. We are coming up on our time allotment, so I want to turn the call over to Sheila for some final thoughts and words.
Great. Well, thank you all so much for being on this. It is an honor to work with the 3 superintendents and your teams at each of the districts. Fantastic group of people. And in spite of all of the limitations and in the box issues, as Scott talks about, this community has done something tremendous in coming together around a regional plan. 3 school districts did not have to do that. That was optional. Setting common goals around career pathways and college readiness were optional. Not that you can't do that, don't have to do that individually, but to do it as a region, it created a really powerful infrastructure. And now that we're facing this crisis, I think this technology and access discussion really brings that to the fore. We are now in a place where we can think cross-sector and get this community aligned around it from every perspective. And the school districts is a great place where we can pilot that, to think about how we get ubiquitous coverage for students and how that ties into the future workforce. So this was an excellent discussion. I so appreciate each one of you. And thank you to everyone who attended the call as well. Our superintendents are great examples of modeling regional leadership, but we call all of you to action on this regional initiative to be about an alignment of resources as we deal with what we know will be scarce resources going forward, and to think out of the box and in the box about how we can use what we have to get at new goals that are post-COVID goals. Everyone who attends the call today is going to receive a post-event email. It's going to include a link to the call recording in case you missed any portion of it. It will also have information on how you can submit additional questions to your individual school district should you have follow-up, and information on the Chamber and One Future Coachella Valley. We appreciate the support of our entire Valley as we seek to really offer our students the best possible education and future and see them as part of the solution. And we will have follow-up series to this webinar on higher education and on workforce, so we hope you tune in. Thank you to all of you. Have a great day. And with that, I'll conclude the call.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody. Take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.